This podcast is brought to you by the Prospect Research Institute, where researchers come to learn, innovate, and connect.
We think that we can actually change the job description of researchers and empower them to be more aligned with their true skill set, which is actually strategy.
Welcome to Prospect Research Chat Bites, a podcast by and for prospect research professionals. Today, I'm talking with Adam Martell, CEO and co-founder of Gravyty. Hello, Adam. Thank you for joining me today on Chat Bites.
Jen, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to talk with you.
Yeah, ever since I read the Chronicle of Philanthropy's article about Gravyty's work with the Cure Alzheimer's Fund, I've been intrigued with the implications for prospect research. And I watched your recent video on Disrupt TV. And if I understand this right, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but Gravyty is telling gift officers who they should contact and when, and it even drafts that first email. Is that the way it's working?
That's right. I think early on we learned that predictive analytics were pretty good at predicting which donors are most important. We built a whole bunch of machine learning algorithms that had the ability to predict which donor was most important. And when we started rolling those out to users, the frontline fundraisers kept saying, well, that's great, but it doesn't actually do the work for me. And we learned pretty fast that there's enough data in the database to be able to figure out how much that frontline fundraiser knows the donor. And not just how much, but what the next step should be in moving that donor towards an appropriate gift. We sort of combined all the pieces of data within the database, and we used those pieces to self-draft a self-written email to the donor that's appropriate based on old contact reports and past data points. And then we're sending that to the frontline fundraiser and letting the frontline fundraiser edit that first draft. And then we're learning the writing style of the frontline fundraiser. And we're finding that we can empower the frontline fundraiser to build more relationships with more donors. It's been a pretty amazing ride.
Wow. So instead of arriving to work and saying, okay, I have a prospect pool of 150 people, which one am I supposed to talk to today? Or I don't have any tasks scheduled for today, so what should I focus on? They instead come to the office and Gravyty already has stuff lined up for them.
That's right. Yeah. When I was a frontline fundraiser at Babson in my last job, I would come to the office and I would do what every frontline fundraiser does. I would get to the office, I'd open up my email, I'd respond to any emails of any donors that either were upset or were happy or wanted to get together or respond to my last outreach. Once I was done with that, I'd try to develop some strategies for my next set of outreach. And that took up a lot of my day. And when we were looking at the data of how frontline fundraisers spend their time, we sort of found that most frontline fundraisers spend between 30 and 40% of their time trying to figure out which donor to get in front of. They're running reports, they're running analytics on their reports, they're looking through old contact reports, they're looking through lists. And that's 35 or 40% of their entire day spent just trying to figure out who to get in front of. And we found that, another 15% is taken up by travel. And then another 20, 30% is taken up by just blind outreach. And there's only really 10 or 15% of a fundraiser's time that's actually spent forward and front facing with donors. That's what we wanted to change. And I knew from having experience as a frontline fundraiser, if we were going to help frontline fundraisers be more efficient, that's where we can make the biggest difference.
Wow. Because, at first blush, when I hear that, Gravyty's figuring out who they should be talking to. As a prospect research professional, I'm thinking, wait a minute. It's my job to come up with that prospect pool. It's my job to figure out who they should be prioritizing. But you're right, even in shops where there's a whole team of prospect research professionals, the frontline fundraiser still is tasked with who am I going to talk to today, who's priority based on did they respond to me, yada, yada, yada. But I don't think you're trying to put me out of work.
No, certainly not, and nor can we.
And I say that because, we know that technology doesn't just leap over swiftly and completely roles. I mean, we still have movie theaters, right? We haven't just obliterated them, but it changes. And I'm curious if you have clients that employ research professionals. I'm wondering how Gravyty has become the cognitive colleague. I've read Big Good by David Lawson for
yeah.
Research professionals and or frontline fundraising staff. So how do you see it working with our profession?
Yeah, so absolutely. Every one of our customers, except for one customer who only has a fundraising staff of two, the executive director of one frontline fundraiser, every single one of our customers has researchers on staff. The real problem that we're solving for researchers is that I look at my experience as a frontline fundraiser. When I was at Babson, we had 3 researchers on staff, and we would have these prospect review meetings where I'd have a portfolio of 150. They'd be managing between 2,000 and 2,500 rated but unassigned donors. All the folks that were the outcome of all the, the iWave screenings that we did and all the screenings that we did. They had capacity, they had some affinity. There were around 2,000 of them. And the poor researchers, they would come to these prospect review meetings, and they'd come with these sheets of paper, and they'd say, Adam, these are your 5 new prospects for the week. It was sort of pipeline development. And they put so much work into trying to figure out which donors of the 35,000 I should be focused on. And then I didn't do anything with it. And neither did my colleagues. And even if we did, we'd call them once, and they were sort of low priority. We're not trying to replace that. What we're trying to replace is the connection between the researcher and the frontline fundraiser. Because right now, researchers are sort of siloed in the data world, where you're looking at data. You're doing a lot of searches online with different tools. And you're spending a lot of time trying to feed the frontline fundraisers and almost encourage them to take action on what you already know is right. These donors have capacity. They have affinity based on the other giving to other organizations. What we're trying to do is trying to find ways to eliminate the challenges that researchers have communicating everything they know to the frontline fundraisers, and change the job description of a researcher from just being somebody who runs searches to being a co-partner and a strategist, and somebody who actually drives the activity of the frontline fundraisers. Historically, and you look at the jobs, most frontline fundraisers have really great EQ skills, but most of us, we're not analytics folks. And most of the researchers are really high on the analytics scale. And by allowing a researcher to partner with a frontline fundraiser, not just to feed them leads, but to actually help frontline fundraisers develop strategies, we think that we can actually change the job description of researchers and empower them to be more aligned with their true skill set, which is actually strategy.
Wow. So, you used a very kind word, encourage them to adopt these fabulous new prospects we found. I'd say beg is often a word that pops into our heads. I'll say that out loud because you're right. We talk about things in our field like, we'll give it a scintillating headline. What would make you want to call that prospect? But what I'm hearing is that you're taking a step out of there or adding a step for the frontline fundraiser. Like Gravyty is putting together that first outreach in terms of the email.
That's right. So we have a customer that we're running an A/B test with now. It's Westmont College, and they have a staff of 5. Their VP is an amazing gentleman. His name's Reed Sheard, and he's the CIO and the head of development. And they had this amazing researcher, and the researcher spent a whole bunch of time trying to figure out which donors are most important that are in the rated but unassigned pool. And he gives 1 or 2 donors per frontline fundraiser every week. And what we're doing is we're A/B testing whether if Gravyty picks those donors and sends them out to some of the fundraisers, and if the researcher picks those donors and tries to get the frontline fundraisers to take action, which one is more time intensive and which one is more effective? There's no question. I mean, the technology pushing it out to a frontline fundraiser, ensuring that they do something on every single donor, it's a much better outcome, because then the researcher becomes a strategist. He can then figure out what to do with the rest of the rated but unassigned pool and how to get the frontline fundraisers to behave in the ways that we know they need to behave to generate the revenue that we need to support our mission. To change in the job description, which we just think better aligns with the actual skill set, because every researcher that I've ever met has been amazing. They've been brilliant. They've been amazing. Researchers are by nature collaborative. There's no reason why they shouldn't be strategists and the true support network for every frontline fundraiser.
That's fun. And I saw the press release that you have partnered with iWave, and
that's right.
Love using iWave product, but I have to admit, I can't quite imagine what is that going to mean for the user. How is my use of iWave going to change with Gravyty?
First of all, iWave, they're an amazing company. Anybody who hasn't worked with iWave, I'm sure most of your listeners have, but anybody who hasn't, they need to check them out, because they are at the forefront of both the amount of data and the types of data that they have, but their customer success and their understanding of the way that our market is using data is just the best out there. And we chose them because they were the absolute best. They were at the forefront of the technology. Ultimately, what it boils down to is that we create these first drafts. We have been relying on where the private data sets within the CRM itself. So if you take an organization, they have their CRM, we're looking at all those private data sets, and we're applying machine learning algorithms to predict which donors are going to make the next biggest gift, pushing one at a time out to a frontline fundraiser. With the partnership with iWave, what we're actually doing is powering the algorithms and getting the data out of the research office and funneling it directly to the frontline fundraisers. So because First Draft has captured the inbox and the screen of the frontline fundraisers through email, we can now push a lot of the iWave data directly to the frontline fundraiser. And you get this proxy for a research report where the frontline fundraiser now has enough data to make the decision about whether they should reach out to the donor. It's not a full research report, but it's more data than they had before. And iWave has just been the best partner for us for that.
Okay, that's interesting. And is there any intervention, for example, on the part of prospect research? Because I know there can be, well, the more common the name, the more common the mismatches. Like, is there
That's right.
any intervention point for that data?
Yeah, so if it's not a high match, it goes to the research department automatically, and that's already filtered through automatically. But iWave has an amazing matching system. I mean, they have a triangulation and also a high-low record, and then we're applying a whole bunch of AI techniques on top of their matching to ensure that the matching is right. It's not 100% accurate, but it's better than it ever has been with any other data company. And the more that we apply our machine algorithms to their data sets and work with them to continue to improve the way that we do the matching, what we're finding is that we can get pretty close to having a more than a 60-70% match. And what we're also doing is giving the frontline fundraisers feedback loops to allow us with one click of a button to say, oh, this isn't the right John Smith. Can you give me the next one? And what that does is it allows the frontline fundraiser to actually train our algorithms. And that will allow us to create a data set that's almost 100% accurate eventually. When you sort of look into the future, if there's enough training happening, we can get these matches pretty accurate. And that's what we're really fighting for right now.
That's interesting. So my experience at the moment, I have a client who uses iWave, and we also access that subscription. So what we're doing, and they have a new major gift officer. This is a new initiative for them. And they're screening their donors that they get. So we had just end of year appeal, for example, the fall appeal, and then we can jump right into iWave and check those records. So we do a quick verification because typically the highest rated have been very common names. It's New York City, you can imagine. And then like really fast and shared in a very secure environment, they can then just make those phone calls. I mean, this isn't a need for deep research. It's a need to get out there and make that phone call. And I guess what you're saying Gravyty is going to be able to do is sort of take that out. Like once the machine is trained to recognize what makes a better match, which we know AI can do that much better than we can, we won't have to spend all that time just verifying those results.
That's right. When you think about a fundraising shop of one, obviously it makes sense for them just to log into iWave. But if you think about a fundraising shop of 20 or 50 or 100, everybody can't be logging into the same platform and sort of pulling from the same list. There has to be some pushing out. And what every frontline fundraiser will tell you is, all I really need is an executive assistant. I just need somebody that can take care of my travel planning, plan my day, and sort of, can respond to really primitive emails. And that executive assistant, regardless of whether they're a fundraiser or not, they can deal with a lot of the EQ or the IQ type work. They can deal with a lot of the data and a lot of the pushing and a lot of the behavioral changes that have to happen for frontline fundraisers to be really effective. Planning a good day. That's where we're finding this partnership to be most valuable, because right now with the mid-sized and large organizations, the researchers are bogged down by doing these research reports for frontline fundraisers who are asking for them before they even do qualification. I mean, they're asking for research reports because they somebody bumped into a potential large donor at the coffee shop, and now they want a full 2-hour research report. It's insane. I mean, frontline fundraisers, they have to be empowered to go out and have good conversations. And there is no proxy for a frontline fundraiser getting in front of a donor and actually determining whether they have capacity and affinity. Data was only meant to get us a portion of the way. And it feels to us like fundraisers are over-relying on just the data itself, and they're using it as a crutch for the work they should actually be doing, which is true qualification, relationship building, and really inspiring donors to make gifts. And that's what we want to empower.
Yeah, it would be so much more fun for us if, with this client we have, instead of, trying to rush through and verify these names, for example, or prioritize them, we could instead have our monthly meeting and talk to them about their calls and what data worked and what didn't. That would be much more helpful.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do for the researchers. If we can empower every researcher to get away from Google searches and iWave searches and LinkedIn searches and really empower, take care of the data portion, but empower them to be strategists and say, hey, how did that conversation go? Is there anything I can provide you? Is there anything else you need to know? Is there anything else that might be helpful after you already had that initial conversation? And hey, here's what I see work with every other fundraiser, because the researchers, I mean, every researcher has this, 10,000 foot view of 30 fundraisers or 20 fundraisers or of a bunch of fundraisers. And each fundraiser only knows what they know. And they might talk to one of their colleagues, but the researchers are by far the most connected folks in the office. And they're not utilized for strategy because they're being asked to run a whole bunch of primitive reports and primitive research.
It's so true. All right. Well, that's pretty cool stuff. And I know it's also pretty new and pretty foreign to most of us. Like I'm grappling with what it actually looks like. So when you have something that you've created new like this, it's often difficult for people to imagine how it can help them in their everyday tasks and their work processes. And I'm wondering, how are you persuading people to try out Gravyty or encouraging them to reimagine how they work?
Yeah, the most important thing we're doing is showing success with the folks who have already believed in us. With every technology innovation and every technology transformation out there, there are early adopters. And the early adopters are the folks historically who aren't so much concerned with, the initial outcomes, they're more concerned with, is this going to be a trend moving forward? You look at the early adopters of the internet, they were the folks who had the websites really, really early on, who said, yeah, we know that the internet's going to be big, and they're not going to wait until, 2000 or 2001 to have a website. They're going to do it in the 90s and the late 80s. And there's just no way that early adopters can't do that. So when you have these early adopters, they're the folks who believed in us early on. You look at a college of Charleston, and they were with us early. Over the past 6 months, they've seen this amazing success. With the success that they've seen expanding their workforce, they wrote a case study for us. And now, we have a whole bunch, almost 50 referenceable customers that are large organizations. I'm speaking at just about every case conference with different VPs. Rod Grabowski and I from the University of Buffalo just spoke at KC6. We were the keynote speakers about the future of fundraising and how artificial intelligence will play a role in that future. Our customers and their success are really the persuasive factors. And when you talk about a transformation like we're seeing, Rod at University of Buffalo, they're up 70% in visits in the past 6 months since adopting Gravyty. Philanthropy's up 32%. College of Charleston, their staff of 15 are working at a pace of a staff of 39. These are results that no organization has ever seen before. And technology isn't the cause, but it's the enabler of the improvement. Our phones are ringing off the hook right now, and we don't have enough salespeople to keep up with the demand of folks that want to learn more about us. So the goal for us is to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to create content to tell people about the work that we're doing.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I'm very encouraged. And I'm really thrilled that you took some time to share with me today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That was Adam Martell, CEO and co-founder of Gravyty. Are you looking to stay relevant with prospect research? It's a tall order with new information technologies like Gravyty whizzing onto the scene. That's why the Institute moved to an all-membership model with on-demand courses. And yes, we still have a free membership level, Knowledge Seekers. We want to help everyone stay current, regardless of your budget size. Go on, check out the resources and on-demand courses at www.prospectresearchinstitute.org. Until next time, cheers!